What makes a platform fighter? This is a question that has plagued my mind. Well, no, that doesn't sound quite right. What makes a platform fighter is more a question that has a very simple and already defined answer. According to the fighting game glossary, a platform fighter is any fighting game where the primary goal is to knock characters off a series of platforms that comprise a stage. Going with this definition, the defining characteristic of this genre of game is not merely a platform or a fighter, but a combination of both. With only a platform, you have, well, I'm not even quite sure what you have other than a blank canvas, unless it was a platform simulator. Now that just sounds like one of those fake idle Steam games that just mines crypto from your hard drive. I mean, there is almost certainly a number of people greater than zero on this planet that would love to have a platform simulation to live out their childhood dreams of suspension. But hey, here on the Maple Ruffles channel, we don't judge. Now, on the other hand, without a platform, you just have a fighter. Now, that would just be a fighting game, of which there are many. Today, I intend to do an analysis on these two minimum necessary components for a game to be classified as a platform fighter. The fighter component of platform fighters takes more time and effort not only to come up with, but design, animate, and balance. In the context of platform fighters, a fighter is not one who fights platforms, though there is almost certainly a number of people greater than zero on this planet that would love to have a platform fighting game to work out their childhood trauma of suspension. But hey, here on the Maple Ruffles channel, we don't judge. The fighter is the character or characters, depending on the context, that can move on a platform and maybe even off it and fight. This most often includes movement options such as running, jumping, dashing, rolling, recovering, dodging, etc., while simultaneously attacking other fighters, players, or CPUs to knock them off the platform. Typically speaking, you want to have a good variety of unique fighters to choose from, making up the platform fighter roster. The roster generally takes an overarching theme like Nickelodeon or The Elements. The roster also takes on a specific design visually, following art direction and such. Certain themes and fighters can be more difficult to animate depending on the medium chosen, such as sprites or models. Now, roster of fighters and their visuals are one side of design. The other is the dreaded word, balance. Now, how many characters would you say you should have? Will the fighters be very similar or have archetypes? If there are fighter archetypes, how many of those will you have? Will the game be updated on a regular basis to provide changes and keep the game fresh? If not, how many patches will be put out, if any? The mechanics and all the nitty-gritty details must be included for a polished fighter. Attacks hit people, so they need hitboxes. Getting hit hurts, so fighters also need hurt boxes. The fighter's attacks will vary in strength and speed primarily, but also in size, type, and range. The less talked about aspect of the fighters themselves are their distinctions. Now, some platform fighters will have distinctions given to all the characters on the roster to make sure their gameplay stands out among the rest. Take Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl's 2 slime mechanic. Being able to boost any special move, improve your air dodge, cancel momentum, and even cancel any move into another, well, the developers just skyrocketed how unique the gameplay can get by giving all the characters more options. A platform fighting game that I think does this well on an individual scale is Rivals of Aether. Characters like Zetterburn can set opponents on fire with specific moves, causing damage over time, but it can also cause them to face even more consequences when faced with a heavy attack. Orcane has puddles, Forsburn has smoke, Edelus has ice, and the list goes on. Each character has a unique mechanic to play around, enhancing uniqueness and identity while maintaining an overall cohesive theme. These distinctions ought to make the game better and more competitive, if that is the point. Certain platform fighters are made primarily to be casual. The Super Smash Bros. Series, for instance, is a party game series first. Sakurai himself has gone on record stating, "I want to avoid a design where stronger players utterly dominate weaker ones. We should make it so that new players can have fun as well." This comes from Sakurai's 502nd Column Reader response, number 46, published in Famitsu in March 2016. Now, you may disagree with me as this is my opinion, but considering Super Smash Bros. Is a more casual-orientated platform fighter, I believe that would be the mindset of the majority of the people who bought it. Of the tens of millions of copies sold, how many of those people seriously and competitively play the game? But just taking Smash Ultimate, for example, it has so much content that is simply not allowed, namely stages and items, even a couple of music selections, to play competitively. The mechanics themselves tend to be more forgiving, and yet the game can also feel more restricted. Fighters, by proxy, were not created necessarily for competition. That is evident in their balancing. Anyways, sorry for that rant, but platform side of things is seemingly much easier and defines the platform fighter genre. What is a platform? Well, again, in the context of a platform fighter, it is the stage on which the fighters will, well, fight. Though there may be some confusion with this definition, as platforms are usually used to describe the semi-solid slabs of stage that float in various patterns above the main platform. For our purposes and in the grand context, the platform is the main stage itself. When coming up with a list of platforms or stages, there are a couple of routes you can take. You can choose or create ones that match the theme, or you can choose or create ones that match the style and design. A good example of a platform list made around a theme is Smash Ultimate. Smash Ultimate has a fairly loose theme of Nintendo or gaming in general. And because of that, there are so many to choose from, and oftentimes they look completely different from one another or the rest of platforms as a whole. This is, however, arguably the easiest route. Depending on the theme, you can hit the large number of platforms as well as the hype and nostalgia of them in one fell swoop. One could argue, however, that this loose theme is not much of a theme at all, and there will always be an unhappy crowd with platform and fighter selection. Now, a game like Rivals of Aether designed platforms around the style and design of the game first. This includes competitive viability. These platforms more often than not represent the elements while staying true to the design and art style of the game. A big problem this design philosophy can present is favoring looks over functionality, which I personally do believe is present in a few of the platforms in this game. But overall, they did a phenomenal job. That doesn't mean that Smash Ultimate did not do a phenomenal job, but I'm just trying to highlight the pros and cons of each of the design philosophies. There is an allowance for far more creativity and emphasis on the uniqueness of the game compared to others. Like mentioned earlier, platforms are designed with looks and functionality in mind. When it comes to platform design in the context of platform fighter game design, I personally believe that both are equally important. Looks with no functionality, not complementing the mechanics, no variety, no competitive viability, etc. This produces boring or no gameplay. Functionality with no looks produces the same. For example, you would not want to eat the best looking food in the world if it tasted and smelled horrible, and you would not want to eat the best tasting food in the world if it looked terrible. I do believe that both looks and functionality have three factors each that play into their design. For the looks of the platforms, you want to make sure they have cohesiveness, simplicity, and creativity. Cohesiveness ensures none of the stage stands out and the theme of the game is complemented, not detracted from. Simplicity ensures that casual or competitive players are able to enjoy the platforms for what they are without worrying about what they do. Now, I'm not advocating that hazards or varying terrain are bad, but they should be implemented in a way that, again, complements the theme and mechanics of the game. Creativity shows the passion and effort behind the design in a way for the developers to express themselves. For the functionality of the platforms, you want to make sure they complement the mechanics of the game, that they are competitive, and that there's a variety. Complementing the mechanics of the game means making sure there are walls on the bottom of the stage to wall jump on, or that the platforms themselves are bigger or smaller depending on the movement mechanics, etc. Competitiveness does not necessarily mean that every stage should be competitively viable, but that every platform should be designed with the intent of the game in mind. If your platform fighter is targeted towards the competitive scene and you want it to be competitive, make sure the platforms fit that bill. And vice versa if it comes to casual audiences. The last thing you want is a majority of platforms to be on some ban list because of an exploitable terrain or hazards. Variety ensures that there is more content to learn from, adapt to, and enjoy in your game. So all that being said, what makes a platform fighter? Well, I'd say a platform and at least two fighters. But perhaps a more important question is what makes a good platform fighter? A good platform fighter is one that has a balanced roster of uniquely playable characters who are able to move with a diversity of efficient and precise moves and mechanics across a variety of cohesive, simple, and creative platforms that complement the mechanics and enhance the level of competitiveness within the game. Thank you all so much for watching, and keep an eye out for the next Maple Ruffles video. See you later.